Well, catecholamines, there's a specific gene called COMT, COMT. And if you're a woman and you've ever had a hormone test done, like it's called the
Like
Dutch
a Dutch
test.
test?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So COMT is right on the Dutch test.
Mm-hmm.
So, and because COMT, catechol O-methyltransferase, will actually not only downregulate catecholamines, calm you down, but it also sends estrogen down a pathway to help be eliminated. So generally women that have this COMT gene mutation suffer from anxiety. They also suffer from poor gut motility. It's not their diet. It's not their gut microbiome. It's not the food sensitivities or the food allergies, and they go way down that path. It's the intestinal motility, because all of these things are related to the same thing. When you have poor catecholamine regulation, when you have a deficiency in something called methylfolate, which is the methylated form of folic acid, when you have this deficiency, your gut does not move at the right pace. And so you have intermittent gas or bloating or diarrhea, or constipation or irritability or cramping, and you're always trying to tie it to what you last ate, but it has nothing to do with what you last ate very often.
Well, and what's interesting is I have the MTHFR gene.
That's
and
another very common one.
Yeah,
tied to anxiety.
Especially with women, I feel like. And I have something with COMT. I had that tested, but I can't remember right now what.
So COMT has two variants. So MTHFR has two variants as well. One's called C677T. If you have that version, you're highly prone to anxiety. One is called A1298C, and that one is highly tied to anxiousness. And the difference is, anxiousness is a very present value emotion, right?
Yeah.
I got to get out of this restaurant. I feel uncomfortable in here. I got to get to the next task. It's a very present value emotion, meaning you're very much, it's with the present circumstance that you're in. Anxiety is usually a fear of the future, a sensation of impending doom. Something bad is going to happen. If I get on that plane, it's going to crash. If I get on that elevator, it's going to fall. If I go to this meeting, they're not going to like me. It's a fear of the future. And the reason for this is the way that MTHFR metabolizes folic acid into methylfolate and some of its other derivatives has a lot to do with not just your intestinal motility, but it has a lot to do with how you downregulate these neurotransmitters. It's also linked to poor homocysteine metabolism. And homocysteine is an amino acid that all of us have in our blood. You have it, I've got it, all your listeners have it. And if this amino acid rises and we don't break this amino acid down, usually with something called trimethylglycine, and we don't break this amino acid down, what it can do is it can build up. It causes a lot of inflammation in the body, and it causes a vascular constriction. And when you constrict the vascular system, we've got 63,000 miles of blood vessel in our body. When you constrict the vascular system, the pressure rises. So now your blood pressure is rising, and they examine your heart, and there's nothing wrong with your heart. You have a normal EKG, you have a normal EEG, you have normal heart sounds, normal lung sounds. Maybe you had advanced studies done, dye contrast study, cardiac catheterization. You've had these advanced studies done, and they're all normal, but your pressure's high. So they still medicate the heart, even though they can't prove that it's committing a crime.
Yeah.
Instead of looking outside the heart and saying, I wonder if a nutrient deficiency could possibly be causing this condition. And if you look at the skyrocketing rates of postpartum depression in pregnant women, which, by the way, does begin during pregnancy. They call it postpartum depression, but it does begin during pregnancy. If you look at the skyrocketing rates of postpartum depression, in pregnant women, you'll see that they are concomitant with the introduction of folic acid into their diet, or their OBGYN will say, well, now that you're pregnant, you need to take high doses of folic acid.
Let's talk about this, by the way. Sorry to interrupt you, but because there's a misconception about the folic acid, what we need to be taking is folate, right?
Yes, specifically methylfolate.
Yes.
Or something called folinic acid. Those two are amazing. So if you, without getting too complicated, if you look at the what's called the methylation cycle, how something goes from being in the non-usable form and gets converted into the form the body can use. Okay, if you look at how these nutrients are converted, folate and folic acid go down the same pathway. when they enter the cell and essentially are involved in DNA methylation, if you cannot convert them into methylfolate, the cell goes into something called S-phase arrest, which is where the DNA stops replicating. If you add methylfolate back to the cycle or back to the diet, you stop the S-phase arrest. And so why is that important? And that's important because pregnant women, for example, as soon as you get pregnant, your doctor tells you to take high doses of folic acid. You'll never convince me that an entirely synthetic, man-made chemical that didn't even exist before, I think, about 1993, is somehow critical to a healthy pregnancy. And I know the intention was good. They wanted to try to reduce neural tube defects, but they didn't understand the full chain of cellular biology. If you gave women methylfolate, and if you are pregnant or thinking of getting pregnant, just switch your multivitamin, your prenatal vitamin, to one that is a methylated prenatal, and specifically look for methylcobalamin and methylfolate, and your likelihood of developing postpartum depression will go down dramatically. Because what happens is these women, especially ones with MTHFR, will take high doses of folic acid, and then they start to get anxious. They have anxiety. Eventually, it gives way to depressive symptoms, and the pregnancy eventually ends and they stop taking the prenatal vitamin, and then the symptoms go away.